Okay, you little... run out of interesting names to call you today. But do I have a jam-packed video for you? Oh yes, so jam-packed. It's gonna be hard to fit it all in without yet another person saying, I could have done it all in 3 minutes. Yes, I could have, but...
What are they complaining about? Are they not entertained?
Well, quite my point, but before I get too distracted, let's get on. And today we are talking about VACE, and to give you a heads up, we will be looking at VACE 2.2 module with WAN 2.2 dual models. This workflow is based on the FFLF workflow I shared in, well, the FFLF video, but we will be adding in nodes that allow us to inject frames into existing video clips, and in doing so, change those existing video clips. First, I will show you extending a video using the last frames of a previous video clip. Then I will show you how to fix the shadow of a horse that is missing, so a targeted method of adjusting part of a video clip. I'll then show you some caveats around that and the conditions when it doesn't work, and I'll do that with a bear while fighting one of the most challenging issues with FFLF workflows, which is walking trees. Yes, trees are bastards. Then I will finish up showing you that it does have merit, but it is about how you approach the masking. What you won't see in this video is how to target and replace characters in scenes, because that requires a slightly different setup to the one I will show you today, and I will explain more on that as we get going. So let's get going.
And first off is extending a video. Here we have my original FFLF workflow, but I have ripped out the first frame and last frame image loading node and added in just one video loading node with my video clip. And as you can see, I've set the frames to 16 per second. I am using only 832 by 480 resolution because I'm in a hurry. This workflow is so good I can actually run 720p on my 3060, but it takes 30 minutes. What you also might notice is I have set the frames of the inbound video to start at 60 aside. That is an arbitrary number, and I'm doing it to capture a few of the final frames. In this case, 17 frames. These will be used to inform the workflow, as we shall see in a moment. Here is the inbound video clip I wish to extend, and if you recall from the previous video, I have composited my chaps back into it, which is why the faces look fairly detailed. At 8232 by 485, we won't be getting that back out, but today isn't about quality, it is about masking and extending with VACE 2.2. So let's now look at the method I will use to extend this video. At first sight, this will be confusing, so let me talk you through it. The video is coming in via the start image, and you can see from the preview I set up that it is putting in just 17 of those frames from my starting the 81 frame video at frame 60Y. The maths isn't right, but also I don't care, it is roughly right. And that is 17 frames I count in the top preview image. In the bottom left is a grey image I am loading, but after that. In this situation I might not need it, but I do it anyway. It is middle grey because VACE will then know that this is a frame I want it to replace. Before we look at the nodes, look at the previews on the bottom right, where I have previewed the image and the mask frames that are going to be fed to VACE. White mask tells VACE to write over that frame, and a black mask tells VACE to ignore that frame. The preview image of the horse in the first 17 frames just helps me know I got the math right in the nodes. Let's now look at the nodes. I am straight away going to tell you this is all wrong. So let me just load up something that should correct the figures you see there. I like to leave mistakes in, because the weird thing is, this worked. Why? I honestly don't know or care. The preview show enough to know it would work, but sometimes things get weird with numbering, so let me now just swap in the correct information, which is basically where I change the node numbers from this to this. Shazam, and from the previews I then ran, you can see exactly the same result should be getting sent to the VACE encode node. So let me talk you through those nodes and what the numbers mean here. Starting with the replace images in batch node, you know why we are setting the start index to 17, correct? It's because we are starting the replacement of images and adding masks at frame 17. 17 from 81 frames, which is our final target output frame number, leaves us 64 frames, I think. And 64 is the number we put in for the middle grey image I showed you earlier that we will push in to replace each of 1640 frames. And 64 is the number of mask frames that we will inject from frame number 18 onward, and the solid color node set to 1 makes certain they are white because, correct, because VACE will ignore frames with a black mask and overwrite frames with a white mask. But it will only do that if the image is middle grey, so we need that combination. This is why I prefer to inject a middle grey image rather than just trust the node to make one. This is also why I add in the previews so I can check my maths is right, or at least something will work out. Another reason to test run this at 280p resolution. I think we are ready to test it. But first we must add something into the prompt to tell VACE what we want it to make from the 17 frames we are giving it. And here it is. The man dismounts from his horse and joins the 3 men at the campfire. And I throw photorealistic and high quality in there just because the poor tree rendering of the original might be mistaken for cartoon.
So let's do it.
And this is the original video I fed into this workflow, of which only the last 17 frames were used. What I got back was this. Now, a couple of things to mention. Firstly, it was actually the 720p result, so the quality is a bit better. Secondly, the astute amongst you will have noticed there were more than 17 frames, and the clue is in the horse head movement at the start. That is because I used the previous incorrect settings and got 26 frames or something to start with. The third issue is purely aesthetic and made me realise I made the horse rider too tall, so my man standing is a bit of a midget. Now, I'll also be honest and admit that I never tried WAN 2.2 with VACE 2.2 module for extending a video before. Why? Because I tried downloading all the fancy workflows, and if you saw my previous video discussing extending videos, they looked overwhelming. I just assumed this way would cause bad contrasting, but check this out. First, I blend them together in DaVinci Resolve free version, and that gives me the final result, and I haven't even color matched anything. I will be using this moving forward for testing extending all my shots. I think it looks pretty good and blends well with the original video clip, which is what you see here. More on this as I use it. Now, let's move on to the next masking task. In fact, let's not. Instead, I am going to stop it there and make this a 2 or 3 part video. I am sure many of you are overwhelmed by what you just watched, and I do speak rather quickly, so better would be for you to rewatch that, get familiar with it, and next video I will post will be part 2 and involve bears and trees. And I can tell you now, trees are bastards. So until tomorrow, Bambinos, ciao for now.